Hello, my name is Dale Wilhite. I'm right now living in Alpine, Wyoming. If you want to find out anything about me, go to MySpace or Facebook where I have accounts. This here's just a little advice I want to give to people who have to take their car into, let's say, a garage to be worked on by a mechanic. Or if you go to a place like Big Ten Tires to have your car worked on. Here's something you need to remember and learn very quickly. This could save you some money. First of all, keep in mind that when you go up there and they say, okay, we'll work on your car, it's going to take 2 hours to complete the work, whatever that might be. Well, here's something I just recently learned, and I hadn't really paid much attention to this until just about a month ago. That doesn't mean that when they put your car in there to work on it, that they're going to be working on it for 2 hours straight through only. That's not what they're saying. It's going to take about 2 hours, maybe to work on your car when it might only take about an hour. Because when they work on your car, they don't just work on your car; they're working on other vehicles as well. I took my car to Big Ten Tires the other day, or about a month ago, to have the spark plugs put in and a few other things. And I kept noticing there in the waiting room, I was watching them work, that the mechanic was going from vehicle to vehicle. He'd go from one over here, then he'd go to my vehicle, then he'd come over here and work on this vehicle, then he'd go over here and work on that vehicle. That's what they're doing. And so that's something I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of these mechanics they're doing now. It's not their fault. This is what they're instructed to do by the owner, of course. So I'm just trying to give you some advice that when you take your, we're gonna have to charge you $100 because it's gonna take an hour, or $200 because it's gonna take 2 hours. That doesn't mean, again, I'm gonna say it again. That doesn't
Mean that they're going to be working on your vehicle for those 2 hours straight through. It's just going to take them that long because they have to do another vehicle at the same time, and so they're going to do a little bit here, another vehicle there, one over here, one over there, and that's what happens.
To me, this should be illegal because it's a ripoff. You're actually paying, for something you think that it's going to take 2 hours to do, when technically it may only take an hour to do. Now, of course, the only time that might not happen is if you're the only vehicle there, or they can't work on these other vehicles, or it's an emergency where they gotta get it repaired quickly. But other than that, they're liars when they say it's gonna take 2 hours, and then they charge you these high fees, for that work. If they worked on your vehicle straight through, that would be different. That's not always the case. That's just a little information I wanted to pass on because these one of the biggest rip-offs in America are businesses that rip people off continuously, are mechanics. And a lot of these shops. That's why a lot of us want a mechanic that we know and trust. But it's not always easy, to find such people like that. Just like recently, I was having trouble with my car. Took it up there, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, to a guy that was supposed to be very honest, trustworthy, according to one person at work. Um, and I didn't let this guy work on my car because it just didn't turn out to be true. He might have been honest with that guy, but he certainly wouldn't be honest with me. And luckily, I saved myself about $800 for work that probably didn't need to be done in the first place. So just because someone tells you this person's honest doesn't mean it's so. And that's where the problem lies. And I think that any business that engages in fraud, they ought to lose their license to operate, and especially mechanics. Like Big Ten Tires, where they do a lot of work on people's vehicles, and sometimes not very honestly. And not only should those mechanics be fired, but the owner should be actually lose his license or her license, and never again allowed to run a business, thus eliminating another bunch of fraud. The whole idea is to stamp out that kind of fraud, and our government, our states do absolutely nothing really to deal with this, and that's why we lose billions and billions of dollars in each year to this fraud. And that's why there's so many of us who dread taking our vehicle to any mechanic, because they're just so many of them are just dishonest. There are honest ones, of course, but I haven't met very many of them. Anyhow, just keep that in mind, that when they tell you it's going to take an hour and we're going to have to charge you $100, you need to ask them this question: are you going to be working on my vehicle straight through, or are you going to be working on other vehicles, or is your mechanic going to be working on other vehicles at the same time? That's the question you need to ask them. And tell them, okay, if it's going to take 2 hours, I better see that mechanic working on my car for 2 hours. And I better not see that mechanic going to another vehicle and then another vehicle and then another vehicle, because I'm paying you to work on my car. I'm paying you a lot of money. I expect you to work on my car during that time in which I am paying you. I'm not paying you to work on somebody else's car during that time. That's what you have to confront them with, you know. Now they'll say, well, that's the way we do things, you know, and well, no, tell them, okay, then I want a reduction in labor cost. You have to confront them very bluntly, because I'm going to tell you one more time, they're not working on your vehicle all the way through at times. I don't know how widespread this is, but it may be very widespread. Because after watching this guy here, I got thinking back in the past 20, 30 years, and I remember some mechanics, you know what? That mechanic that's exactly what he was doing before, or, you know, a mechanic of the past was doing before. Working on other vehicles, and I'm getting charged for labor in which he's not working on my vehicle all the way through. He's doing other people's vehicles at the same time. And that's where the fraud sets. That is fraudulent. If they won't give you a reduction in cost, if you're possible, go somewhere else. And you just have to confront them, say, okay, if I'm going to pay you for this labor, okay, I'm expecting, and it's going to take an hour, I expect that for that mechanic to be working on my car for that hour. And if he gets finished early, I want, you know, a reduction in cost. I don't want to be charged as much. If it's $100 an hour, it better be an hour. Take him an hour to do it. And I don't want any goofing off. See, that's what we're not doing. We're not demanding that their mechanics work on our vehicles and demanding that they make an effort to get the vehicle fixed as quickly as possible to save us a few bucks. No, they just take their sweet time about it, and they work on other vehicles at times. Not every mechanic, but a lot of them apparently do. When they're supposed to be working on your vehicle, and they're charging you labor cost in which they're working on those vehicles. Anyway, I just wanted to pass that on. Thank you for your time, and just remember what I said, because it could help save you some money, and confront the salesman or saleswoman and tell them, okay, if they're going to work on my vehicle, I expect that mechanic to be working only on my vehicle. I'm not paying for other people's labor costs, period.